American dominance portrayed by Top Gun. Mike Garcia used to fly fighters from the carrier decks, now a U.S. Congressman from California, joining us now from Washington. Congressman, good to see you, sir. We appreciate it. Am I right to say that this is not the Navy and U.S. military of 1980s dominance?
No, a lot of things have changed, and frankly, our technological advantages that we've had, the capacity advantages that we've had over the last, call it 40 years, especially at sea and power projection from naval aircraft carriers, has been now matched by China, and they have a tremendous amount of capacity. They're building about 2 ships per month, where we're building about 6 ships per year, and we're actually retiring more ships in a given year than we're bringing to bear to the fleet. So this is a real problem for us, Leland. We're in the hole right now in terms of capacity and rate of change, rate of investment. They're building not only aircraft carriers, but they're building systems to take out our aircraft carriers. And more than ever in the history of naval aviation, our carriers are now more vulnerable than they ever have been, call it 80 years. So this is a major national security concern. We've got to be paying attention to this for sure.
The new Top Gun movie comes out in a couple of weeks here. This is, in the new movie, talking about going into combat. Take a listen.
We're going into combat on a level no living pilot's ever seen. Not even him.
You think up there you're dead. Believe me.
My dad believed in you. I'm not going to make the same mistake.
This would be the question. If we end up going to war with China, will that prove true? We're going into combat from a level no living pilot's ever seen.
Yeah, and certainly if there's nuclear weapons, chemical, biological agents, or just, frankly, general warfare, we're going to see a war of attrition, tremendous losses, loss of aircraft carriers in most scenarios with advanced systems. A DF-31 missile that China retains is effectively the aircraft carrier killer. And so our ships are vulnerable, especially around the Taiwan Straits, and we've got to make sure that we're investing in the defensive
How did we
capabilities
lose the edge?
that we do have. We haven't been paying attention, and frankly, we haven't been taking the Chinese threat seriously enough. You know, we're falling behind in many domains. Space, naval aviation is one of them, but primarily capacity. We have some of the top line jets with the F-35, the F-22, the F-18 Super Hornet. These are unmatched by the Chinese, but the Chinese are building more aircraft than we have. So the sheer capacity challenge that we have and the volume at which China is building is the issue, and we haven't been paying attention to this. We need to double down on our investments in the military and make the $750 billion in our NDAA behave more like $1 trillion or $1.5 trillion in order to catch up.
I'm thinking about, in terms of real ability to project force, that we're not even really there in terms of where our carriers are around the globe, the ability to deploy them in the like. You were on a couple of months ago talking about how there's not even enough money to have our pilots be proficient and fly the number of hours they need to fly every month to be ready for combat against China or against Russia.
That's right.
Is that still the case?
Yep. Yeah, in the 80s, we saw our frontline fighter pilots flying roughly 40 hours per month in training scenarios and more than that in combat operations. When I was in the Navy in the early 2000s to about 2009, we were flying anywhere from 20 to 30 hours, and that number is now below 20 hours a month for training naval aviators. And it's the same for Air Force pilots. We're not getting enough time in the seat, enough time in the cockpit airborne, seeing these very complex mission sets and threat scenarios in what's called an A2AD, or advanced anti-access aerial denial environment, A2AD, which China poses. How do you get in? How do you knock the door down and stay in without being shot down and fly home and complete your mission? This is a very tough problem set right now.
Yeah,
and you can't just do this in simulators and
who we're dealing with of China. And this is really telling between 1986 and today, right? Because the jacket that Tom Cruise wore in 1986 had different patches on it. We'll put them up so you can see that the Chinese have now taken off. It has Taiwan, and it also has the Japanese patch on it. I'm thinking to myself, that's sort of emblematic both of what our lack of abilities are and our unwillingness to stand up to the Chinese, even in a movie.
Yeah, and we don't talk about it in any real Hollywood settings, right? China remains our biggest threat. In most James Bond movies during the Cold War, we didn't have a problem talking about...
Yeah, we always fought the Russians.
The Russian agents and our Russian-Chinese threats, excuse me, the Russian threats. But in this case, China is our #1 national security threat, and for some reason, Hollywood is kowtowed to this. They want that market space. They want to be able to show their movies in China, and rather than talking about the real national security implications.
I hate to interrupt you, but I want to get you to the most important part of this interview, which is the pictures of you back on the deck flying. Do you still have the same motivation factor and the love of the military in this current generation that's coming in to be inspired in the same way you were with American movies and American TV shows as they were in the 80s?
Yeah, I think so. I think America's youth is still passionate. They're still patriots. They want to go do cool things like fly fighter jets and do so in combat operations. To fly an aircraft or fly a fighter jet off of an aircraft carrier in the middle of combat operations is literally one of the best experiences in the world. And I think America's youth and those going through the Naval Academy, West Point, the Air Force Academy, they still look to serve our great nation in our combat arms. But we've got to work on the leadership. We've got to work on the senior ranks, the generals, the Millies of the world, the Secretary Austins of the world, who have frankly lost their way. They've lost their backbone as warfighters, and they're worried more about woke policies right now than actually being able to win a war. And this is a problem. It actually puts our youth in harm's way, and it makes our troops vulnerable. It makes our nation more vulnerable on the world stage, and we've got to pay attention to these things that we're investing in and make sure that we're investing in warfighter capabilities and not social justice actions.
Well, the world today and the Navy, as you point out, that you entered into is very different than the one 36 years ago. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thank you.